The man who was supposed to be getting married in Italy on April 10th is not getting married. The man who threw for nearly 4,600 yards and 30 touchdowns last season, the highest-paid player in the entire National Football League, is instead heading into the most important year of his professional career, carrying a wound that has nothing to do with a hamstring, an ankle, or any other physical injury the Cowboys' medical staff can treat. The wound is personal, the wound is public, and the wound is explosive in a way that the entire NFL world did not see coming when the calendar flipped to March 2026. Dak Prescott's life just detonated in the most visible way imaginable. A canceled Italian wedding, infidelity allegations leaked to the tabloids, a joint email to wedding guests canceling ceremonies at Lake Como, a social media storm that is still raging weeks later, and right in the middle of all of that, the Dallas Cowboys are quietly, desperately, and urgently trying to build the defense that can finally push this franchise back to the playoffs before the window with their elite quarterback slams shut forever. The injury update is real. The personal drama is real. The trade plans are real, and the shock factor of what is happening in Dallas, Texas right now is unlike anything this franchise has experienced in years. Buckle in. Every single layer of this story is about to be peeled back. To understand the full weight of what is happening with Dak Prescott in the spring of 2026, you have to start with what he accomplished in 2025, because the football story and the personal story are inseparable from each other, and the football story is genuinely remarkable in a way that makes the off-field chaos even more jarring and heartbreaking when you put it all in context. 12 months ago, Dak Prescott was barely walking. In November 2024, against the Atlanta Falcons, he planted his foot to throw a pass, felt his right leg give way underneath him, and went down on the AT&T Stadium turf with what would later be diagnosed as a partial hamstring avulsion, a tear of the hamstring muscle so severe that it pulled away from the bone. It was the third time in 5 seasons that Prescott had missed significant time because of injury. 11 games in 2020 with a dislocated and fractured right ankle, 5 games in 2022 because of a broken right thumb, and now 8 games after his hamstring was torn from the bone. 3 different injuries, 3 different body parts, 3 different times the Cowboys lost their franchise quarterback mid-season and watched their playoff hopes evaporate with him. The man had been through the medical equivalent of a war, and yet every single time he came back better. That track record of resilience is what made the 2025 season so remarkable, because Dak Prescott returned from the hamstring surgery not just healthy, but transformed. Prescott scrambled to extend plays with a rejuvenated energy that appeared reinvigorated despite the brutal hamstring injury suffered only months before, rushing for 177 yards and 2 touchdowns, numbers comparable to his 2023 season, while using his legs to generate 15 first downs in critical moments. The speed was back, the explosiveness was back, the willingness to use his body as a weapon on the football field, something coaches had quietly tried to suppress after his injury history, was back with a confidence that told everyone watching that Dak Prescott had rebuilt himself from the ground up during that long rehabilitation winter. He finished the 2025 season having thrown for 4,552 yards, 30 touchdowns, and only 10 interceptions, one of the most efficient statistical seasons of his entire career. Fox Sports. By any objective measure, Dak Prescott in 2025 was one of the best quarterbacks in professional football. That performance made him a finalist for the NFL Comeback Player of the Year award, and if he had won it, it would have been only the second time in Cowboys franchise history that a player claimed that honor, following edge rusher Greg Ellis in 2007. Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys nominated him for that award, and rightfully so. A man who could barely walk in January came back and threw for 4,500 yards with elite efficiency in September. That is not just an athletic achievement. That is a statement about character, about will, about the refusal to let the body write the end of a story the mind is not ready to finish. But the Cowboys still missed the playoffs, finishing 7-9-1 in Brian Schottenheimer's first season as head coach. ESPN. An elite offense, a brilliant quarterback performance, and no postseason. Because on the other side of the ball, the defense was a catastrophe of historic proportions, surrendering 30.1 points per game, the worst defensive performance in Cowboys history across 66 years of franchise football. The offense carried Dak carried the offense, and the defense burned everything down around them. As ESPN put it precisely and painfully, the Cowboys wasted one of Dak Prescott's best seasons. ESPN. Wasted, that word, sitting like a stone on the chest of every Cowboys fan who watched their quarterback play at an elite level and still couldn't get to January football. And now, heading into 2026, with a rebuilt defense being assembled around him and the franchise's most important draft in nearly 2 decades just 3 weeks away, the football story should be the only story. It should be all optimism and anticipation and excitement, but it is not, because in early March, the personal story exploded. Dak Prescott and his fiancée, Sarah Jane Ramos, had been scheduled to get married on April 10, 2026 at Lake Como, Italy, one of the most romantic and picturesque destinations on Earth. The wedding had been planned for months. Guests had booked travel. The ceremony venue was set. The entire event was arranged around the kind of fairy tale setting that befits the highest-paid player in the National Football League, marrying the mother of his 2 daughters in the Italian lakeside paradise that has hosted the weddings of celebrities, royalty, and billionaires for generations. It was supposed to be beautiful. It was supposed to be a celebration. And then, in the Bahamas, during what was supposed to be a joint bachelor-bachelorette trip, something happened that changed everything. According to a report from Page 6, Ramos abruptly called off the ceremony after confronting Prescott over alleged infidelity. Sources claimed Ramos discovered Prescott using incognito social media accounts to send flirtatious messages to multiple women and ex-flings. Bharat Barta, burner accounts, hidden profiles, the same kind of digital shadow life that has destroyed other high-profile celebrity relationships in recent years. Used, allegedly, by the face of America's team to conduct conversations with women that he clearly did not want his fiancée to know about. Page 6 reported that Ramos was aware of Prescott's alleged history of communicating with other women during their relationship, and that she had stayed with him hoping he would change his ways. On the Bahamas trip, she reportedly gave him an ultimatum, and he rejected it. The Shadow League. The news broke like a thunderclap. Prescott and Ramos sent a joint email to their wedding guests announcing the cancellation. As many of you know, our wedding is currently scheduled to take place in Lake Como, Italy, on Friday, April 10, 2026. It is with heavy hearts that we have made the very difficult decision to cancel our wedding. We deeply apologize for any inconvenience this may cause you, and we welcome your prayers. Fox News. A joint email, formal, controlled, the language of 2 people trying to maintain dignity in the face of a private devastation going public at the worst possible speed. A representative for Ramos told People that there was no major argument and no big blow-up, that it was a mutual decision, and that both were heartbroken that they weren't getting married. E! News. The official statement was careful and measured, but the leak from Page 6 told a different story, one of hidden social media, ongoing deception, and an ultimatum that the Dallas Cowboys franchise quarterback reportedly chose not to accept. Ramos herself took to Instagram to address the avalanche of speculation directly. She denied emphatically that the split had anything to do with a prenup, a rumor that had spread rapidly, writing simply, "This had nothing to do with a prenup. I hope we can put that rumor to rest now." Black Sports Online. Not the prenup. Then what?
The denial only drew more attention to the infidelity allegations that Page Six had reported, and the internet connected the dots with the kind of speed and thoroughness that modern social media enables. The couple shares 2 daughters, Margaret Jane Rose Prescott, 2 years old, and Aurora Rain Prescott, just 9 months, and both committed to co-parenting their children with love and care, regardless of what happened to between them as a couple. E! News. Cowboys head coach Brian Schottenheimer, asked directly about his quarterback's state of mind during what was clearly a devastating personal period, chose his words with the kind of care that speaks volumes about the relationship between these 2 men. Dak and I have had a ton of conversations. He's in a really good spot. Obviously, what he's dealing with is incredibly tough, but if anyone can handle it, he can. Heavy sports. If anyone can handle it, he can. That is a statement of genuine belief from a man who has watched Dak Prescott come back from a shattered ankle, a broken thumb, a torn hamstring, and each time perform at an even higher level on the other side. Schottenheimer knows who Dak Prescott is as a competitor. He knows what this man is made of, and he is betting that the same engine that drives his football resilience will carry him through this personal earthquake as well. But here is the question that nobody in Dallas wants to ask out loud, because asking it feels uncomfortable, but refusing to ask it would be dishonest. Can a quarterback perform at the elite level required to lead a Super Bowl contender while simultaneously navigating a broken engagement, 2 young daughters, and an infidelity scandal that is playing out on every sports talk show, every tabloid, and every social media platform in the country? The history of professional sports is not encouraging on this specific question. Distractions matter. Personal stability matters. The ability to walk into a film room on a Monday morning with your mind completely clear and focused on the next opponent, that ability depends on what happened in your life over the weekend. And right now, what is happening in Dak Prescott's life is anything but clear and focused. He is the longest tenured active player on the Cowboys roster, entering his 11th season as the franchise's starting quarterback. He carries with him the weight of a decade of near misses, playoff disappointments, and the haunting reality that the Cowboys have not won an NFC championship game since 1995, a drought that now spans 31 years and counting. Heavy sports. Every season, the pressure builds. Every season, the window gets a little smaller. At $74.1 million against the cap, Prescott's contract is the single largest financial commitment on the Cowboys' entire roster, clutch points, a number that reflects the organization's absolute belief that he is the quarterback capable of winning it all, but that also creates an enormous financial gravitational pull that shapes every other roster decision the franchise makes. The Cowboys restructured his contract to free up cap space for defensive improvements. They bent the salary cap around him. They built the offensive skill position group around him. They brought in George Pickens to give him a second elite receiver alongside CeeDee Lamb. Restructuring Dak and CeeDee Lamb and Tyler Smith to create $66 million of cap space, Yardbarker, was the financial maneuver that made the entire 2026 defensive rebuild possible. Everything flows through Dak. His cap hit, his health, his mental state, his performance, all of it is the foundation on which the Cowboys' championship hopes are built. Which brings us to the Cowboys' trade plans, the other massive story that is developing in parallel to everything happening in Prescott's personal life, and that represents the organizational response to the defensive catastrophe that defined the 2025 season. Because Jerry Jones and Brian Schottenheimer have not been sitting still while the tabloids churn through the Prescott drama. They've been working the phones, restructuring contracts, trading players, and building what they hope is a defense capable of complementing one of the best offenses in professional football. The Cowboys have already made significant moves, trading defensive tackles Osa Odigizua and Solomon Thomas to gain draft capital, signing safety Jalen Thompson, cornerback Kobe Durant, safety P.J. Locke, and nose tackle Otito Agbonia in free agency, and acquiring edge rusher Rashawn Gary from the Green Bay Packers via trade. The secondary has been addressed. The defensive line has been reshaped. The new defensive coordinator, Christian Parker, has been given the personnel he needs to begin building his vision for what this defense should look like. But the work is not finished, not even close. And the trade targets that are still being discussed, the names that are still being linked to Dallas in the weeks before the draft, represent the possibility of the kind of blockbuster move that would transform this Cowboys team from a contender in theory into an actual legitimate threat to win the NFC. The crown jewel trade that analysts say could still happen is Max Crosby. The Cowboys were reportedly close behind the Baltimore Ravens in pursuing the Las Vegas Raiders pass rusher, and although the Ravens ultimately won that race, Jerry Jones has left the door open. Crosby is staying in Las Vegas for now, but it probably won't stay that way after the first night of the NFL draft, and Jones himself has said he's not completely closing the door on the idea. Max Crosby alongside Rashawn Gary, two elite edge rushers flanking Kenny Clark and Quinnen Williams in the interior. Christian Parker installing his new defensive system with that kind of talent at the line of scrimmage. The thought alone is enough to make NFC East opponents deeply uncomfortable. But the price would be significant, and whether the Cowboys have the assets and the financial flexibility to make that deal happen remains the biggest question in the Dallas offseason. 3 blockbuster trade scenarios have been identified as capable of shaking up the Cowboys' entire offseason. Trading for Max Crosby to restore elite pass rush intimidation, potentially flipping George Pickens to replenish financial and draft flexibility, and aggressively moving up the draft board for safety Caleb Downs to secure a generational cornerstone in the secondary. Each of those moves is explosive on its own. Together, they would represent a complete organizational transformation over a single offseason. The Pickens trade scenario is particularly fascinating and potentially alarming for Cowboys fans who fell in love with the electric receiver during his debut season in Dallas. George Pickens had 93 catches and 1,400 yards in his first year with Dak Prescott, in what was immediately described as one of the best trades Jerry Jones had made in a decade. But with his franchise tag set at $27.3 million and negotiations on a long-term extension ongoing, the possibility of flipping him for significant draft capital, painful as it would be, could give Dallas the assets to chase elite defensive help that changes the team's identity far more profoundly than any receiver, however talented, ever could. Jerry Jones himself has left the door open on the Max Crosby question specifically, and has separately confirmed the organization has long-term plans for Pickens, though what those plans look like remains the biggest mystery heading into the 2026 season. That uncertainty is not an accident. Jones operates through deliberate ambiguity, keeping opponents and agents and trading partners off balance while he calculates his next move. He has been doing this for 30 years. The man who invented the draft trade value chart, who built 5 Super Bowl championship rosters, who turned a struggling regional franchise into the most valuable sports team on the planet. He does not make decisions impulsively, even when the surface level of Cowboys coverage makes it look that way. The Cowboys' 2025 campaign culminated in a 7-9-1 record and a second consecutive postseason absence. Under first-year head coach Brian Schottenheimer, the offensive unit was nothing short of electric, ranking among the league's top offenses in total yards and points scored. But the defense dragged the entire enterprise backward. That imbalance, elite offense, catastrophic defense, is the structural problem that every trade plan, every free agency signing, every draft pick is designed to solve, and the clock is ticking in the most literal sense. Dak Prescott is 32 years old, under contract through 2028. He responded to his hamstring surgery with one of the best seasons of his career. He said after the final game of the 2025 season, a loss to the New York Giants, that when asked what was ahead for him personally, his answer was simply, greatness. ESPN. Greatness. One word, from a man who has every physical and statistical reason to believe he can achieve it, but who has watched 2 consecutive seasons end without a playoff berth, who just had his personal life detonated in public, and who is now staring down the barrel of a 2026 season that will define whether he is remembered as an elite quarterback who never won the big one, or as the man who finally delivered a championship to the most storied and impatient fan base in American professional football. The Cowboys enter the 2026 NFL Draft with 2 first-round picks, a third-round selection gained from the Osa Odigizua trade, and the flexibility that comes from a series of calculated, if painful, roster decisions made over the past few months. They will bring back all their key offensive players, Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb on the franchise tag, and running back Javonte Williams on his new 3-year, $24 million extension after his career-best 1,201 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns in 2025. The offense is set. It is talented enough to carry this team to the playoffs. What those first-round picks do for the defense, whether they land a cornerback who can actually cover elite wide receivers, a linebacker who can stop the run and cover backs out of the backfield, an edge rusher who can get after quarterbacks in the fourth quarter of close games, that is the question that will determine whether 2026 is the year the Cowboys finally stop wasting Dak Prescott.
Cowboys coach Schottenheimer, speaking publicly about Prescott in the wake of his canceled wedding and the personal storm that has surrounded him, he's in a really good spot. If anyone can handle it, he can. Heavy sports. That is the bet. That the same man who came back from a bone-torn hamstring and threw for 4,500 yards can come back from a broken engagement and lead this franchise to a championship. That the personal adversity, like every physical adversity before it, will be processed, packed away, and converted into fuel. That Dak Prescott, who has been through more in 11 NFL seasons than most quarterbacks experience in entire careers, is not done, is nowhere near done, and that the best chapter of his story and the best chapter of the Dallas Cowboys story in 30 years is still ahead. The trade plans are loading. The draft is coming April 23rd. The offensive weapons are in place. The quarterback is healthy. And somewhere in Frisco, Texas, inside the Star, Dak Prescott is putting in the work, processing the noise, channeling the pain, and preparing for the season that he and everyone who has ever believed in him has been waiting for. The shock of what happened this off-season, both personally and organizationally, is real, but so is the possibility. And in Dallas, with America's team, with Dak Prescott under center, the possibility of something special has never fully died, no matter how many times this franchise has found a way to crush it. The 2026 season is coming, and the Cowboys, wounded, rebuilt, desperate, and loaded, are about to find out if all of it was worth it. This video is based on publicly available reports, credible sports journalism, official team statements, tabloid reports from Page 6 and TMZ which have not been confirmed by Dak Prescott personally, and ongoing 2026 NFL offseason developments. Information regarding Prescott's personal life is sourced from published reports only. None of the allegations have been confirmed by Prescott himself. This content is for entertainment and informational purposes only. We respect all parties involved and report only what has been publicly confirmed or credibly reported.